Any questions? Yeah.
Interesting for me. It just as don't take this the wrong way, it's a good refresher, to be honest, because you can obviously get caught in the grain, and a lot of, at least the project I'm on is led a lot by the developer, the lead developer. So it's good to get my own sanity back again by looking at some bullets.
And he should be talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as much.
Yeah. So, and we've got a good team, but it can get very much driven by the points that need to get delivered by the end of that sprint. That's what I found a lot recently, with not being very nimble in the middle. So it's a lot of it is that story, as you quite highlighted, isn't necessarily done. Something might have changed a bit, and there's a little bit more negotiation, but
so what's happening is you're faking your velocity. Because the velocity is actually driving the team rather than. So this is interesting, actually. So I have a separate session on estimation, which is a nuanced subject, but velocity is a measurement. It's the speed on a car, not the power of the engine. It's not the thing that drives you. It's a measurement, and it's an average over time of the work you're doing. It's meant to give people a sense of certainty in a fundamentally uncertain thing. The reason it's an average is because you're allowed to miss. You're allowed to miss and underdeliver because software development is hard and complex. So average velocities give us a way of smoothing that curve out so that people can give business owners a reasonable idea of a range of times that you can deliver software. You know, over time, a team will stabilize, and if their velocity becomes stable naturally, then actually people can start saying, oh, well, if we do the story now, you'll definitely have it around this time, because certainty increases as predictability increases. But if you're rushing to meet velocity targets, what you're actually doing is you're just prioritizing speed over quality. That's all it is: quality, speed, cost. And you're just pulling the speed thing all the way up into first gear, and the quality will drop to rush and meet targets, and you won't be done.
Because something that comes up, I find a lot in sprints, is that, whatever you want to call it, Dave, like a curveball, where a story is being built, or it's in that sprint that hasn't been looked at yet. But
at the end,
so it hasn't been, or it's been estimated, sorry. But then, I don't know, you look at it and go, you've either quite frankly forgot something, or the requirement that has just adapted a little bit because it's been missed. A lot of the time I find that's pushed back. It's like, no, that one has been pointed and it's got to go off the conveyor belt. Anything changed needs to be a new story in the next sprint.
Yeah. And
I often don't get that doesn't seem logical to me.
So I think there's two things that'll help you there. You should probably re-estimate at the end of the sprint.
Right.
That'd be an interest, not to change the scores of things that you've already done. The scores remain the same, but for your own sanity, understand the variance, understand how wrong the estimates are, and track them over time. Because what you want to see is the lack of accuracy in estimates decrease over time as the team becomes more cohesive and works together and gets more of a handle on the software they're writing. If that doesn't happen, actually, you either need to start accounting for say they're always 20% off. That's fine. It just means the estimates mean something different.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with as long as it's consistent, there's nothing wrong with them being off by 20%. You just know your team always slightly underestimates. So always give them a little bit less work. If they always overestimate or always over deliver, sorry, I completely said those last two things the wrong way. If they overestimate, that's fine, but you've got to take into account. And if they always have too much free time because they're underestimating, then that's cool as well. You can account for it. But as long as it's predictable and measured, helping them look back and reflect over the estimates that they've done will help them refine their estimation. You don't spend loads of time on it, but almost as a piece of ceremony at the start of a sprint planning meeting, say, okay, well, we did these things. These are the stories we got through. Can we just quickly run through? Was that an 8? Was that a 3? Was that a 2? And just get a thumbs up, thumbs down, and then clear the board. But just keep a note of it for your own sanity, and maybe share it after a couple of iterations and say, look, your estimates are about this far off. Can you think of anything we can do to make that better? Do we need to make sure that we account for these things better? Can you bump them up? Because you always add these extra requirements in when you get close to it. You don't think about these things and they always hit. Or actually you think things are a lot harder than they really are. You're actually much better at delivering this stuff than you seem to think. But it's all about knowing. It's all about those stats being clear, but never run to hit a velocity target. If anything, I really like, instead of burn down charts encourage running down to a target, and they don't leave any room for extra scope. I like burn up. So a burn up, you get where you get, and if you get past it, you get past it, but you can kind of raise the ceiling or lower the ceiling on your charts, as it were. So I quite like that as a way of thinking about it.
And that bit of change during a sprint, what sort of, because that bit we struggle with a little at the moment.
So is it that they introduce more requirements after you've locked down effectively?
Yeah, in a sense. It's because there's a lot of what we're doing is learning as we're going. I'm sure a lot of projects
natural,
are, right?
Natural.
But it seems that, there is a certain lockdowns that to go, right, there's not much flexibility. And I feel that some of it's driven by the fact that we're on 40 points. We can't do any more or less because I've got to hit 40 points to keep the velocity, etc.
Yeah.
So you feel that could be a driver.
Lower your velocity.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Doesn't matter. But I think the important thing to remember is velocity is meaningless.
Well,
it's nothing. It's the stick versus the carrot. It's nothing more than a nice carroty thing for them to hit, rather than being told, "Oh, you're not working hard enough." But it's actually meaningless. It isn't miles an hour. It's not hours spent a day. It's not efficiency of individuals. It's just it's a finger in the air to get a feeling as to the predictability of a team, and nothing more. So lower it. If they're always suffering from having to add extra things, which pushes them out and leads them to rush at the end, just lower it.
Because I'm the one normally bringing in the requirements midway through the sprint anyway. So that's why it's my job. So it's just
okay. So if you do that, displace something else. But you have to.
Yeah.
And you have to, the thing about predictability is it has to be predictable. So if you bring in something they say is a 5-pointer, pick the lowest priority 5-pointer and trade it out. If it's a high priority 5-pointer, pick the highest one and trade it out.
The point we're at the moment, I think, what you mentioned earlier was if somebody or if a team points something very highly, it's normally an indication that they're confused about it. So what we're finding is they're actually overshooting that as well, because that was just the high number they picked.
Yeah.
So then you're kind of stuck, like not knowing exactly how far through, that.
So maybe for your team, the trick is to take anything big and immediately, something comes in as like an 8-pointer or a 12-pointer, like pause, defer it. So only schedule the other stuff, then break out into like a half hour to discuss in depth these big stories, and then take them back in, put them at the end of the backlog. Or because if they're the things at the top of the backlog, you really need to think hard about breaking them up before they come together. Yeah. If there are things that you can shuffle around, I would suggest shuffling them around and maybe break them into some spikes to let the guys learn more. So, okay, we've got an 8-pointer here. We're integrating with this new service we've never seen before, and these new guys over here, right? Complete unknowns. We just know they exist. Okay, well, how about we don't do this story? We're going to write a spike to do a test integration with those guys. We'll time box it to half a day. Do your learnings, come back, and then the next iteration will estimate that story with the knowledge that you have and maybe some of the code artifacts, and then they get a little bit more certainty and they can estimate better.
Yeah, I think that the point is my, not argument back, but my discussion around adding new requirements mid-sprint is to actually take something else out.
Yeah.
That I think the developer would go, oh, right, so it doesn't affect my burn down.
Exactly.
Or at least you can measure that workload, if you like.
So from the developer's perspective, you can't argue with time, you can't argue with the code. If you put more work in, it's fine, okay? You can put more work in the sprint. I'm just not going to do it. But it's a shared delusion if we do that. It is a lie, because if there's that many hours and this many people, and they can do this many things, and you put an extra that many things, okay, well, they're not going to get done. We can say they'll get done, we can pretend they'll get done, but it's a complete lie. So we can swap things out and not lie to ourselves, and then actually there's a chance that they'll get done. They're much more likely to get done. Whereas otherwise, what happens is you overpromise and underdeliver. And always underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always pleasantly surprise people, never disappoint them.